it is. If you push the button, it works better. It's Carco and Carne, still here in quarantine. I'm James Van Osdell, and the podcast is lovingly brought to you by Happy to Meet You. If you live in the Chicago area, city, suburbs, exurbs, Happy to Meet You will take care of you. They bring to your home contactless, free local delivery next day, the same cuts of meat you would get if you went to a big fancy Chicago steakhouse. You don't have to dress up. You can just throw on your sweatpants and a t-shirt, and there it is. Steakhouse quality meat delivered to your door. I've been ordering from them nonstop. You know, I'm at home every night, as so many of us are and have to be. So I want to have meals that don't suck. So I use Happy to Meet You. I've had their steak. I've had their pork chops. I've had their hot Italian sausage. You can order that stuff too. If you use my promo code CARNE, CARNE, it's Spanish for meat, they will come to your house next day, local free delivery, and they'll throw in a full pound of the Mother Chucker burger. That's 2 gigantic patties. I've had that too. Fantastic. Happy to Meet You. It is Happy to Meet, MEAT, letter U.com. Again, use my promo code this week only, CARNE. Do it now or forever hold your meat. My guest today from across this great country of ours, this vast expanse of land, it is Hayley Crusher Cain from Hayley and the Crushers. Just a delightful band, just a delightful person. We met, we did the virtual T1 Fest last month. That's how we kind of came in contact with one another. I got to watch you play virtually. This is the world we live in. And I got to be honest, I didn't know what to expect when you popped into the Zoom. I kind of thought maybe I'd see you sitting poolside, drinking a zombie out of like a tiki mug. I kind of expected cool glasses. I'm like 1 for 3 on that.
Yeah. Everything this is exactly how I want to be seen. So, you know, I'm always just perfectly poised on a pool float, you know, eating an ice cream cone, you know, it's never a bad day over here.
I think having a distinct look can be every bit as important as having a distinct sound, especially for a band like Hayley and the Crushers. Definitely a video focused band. I think that image, that bandality, is really important in the present day. Is that fair to say?
I like the word bandality.
I'm not sure if it's a real word.
I love that. Bandality. Yeah, my sister was a ham growing up. She was really into Rocky Horror Picture Show, and she shaved her head and wore like Ziggy Stardust paint on her face and shaved her eyebrows and became a Buddhist and like et cetera, and like I'm boring compared to her. So I think my whole life I've just tried to live up to my big sister, because I always admired her, and she was always like such a wild child, you know. And also, I mean, what's the point of doing anything if it's not a little bit of a spectacle? Because, you know, you need a little oomph in your life. So that's kind of how we operate as a band.
God, I remember as a kid going to see those midnight shows of Rocky Horror. I remember going to, like, in the Chicago suburbs, I think we went to the Randhurst Theater, and I think I came of age watching Susan Sarandon on screen in that movie. That was a particularly enlightening time in my life.
I think I was like 8 when I saw it at a friend's house, which is terrible, but hey, gender's not a thing anymore, so I guess it was ahead of its time. But I did watch it again on Halloween, and it was delightful. It made me so happy. It just like, it brought so much joy. Like when Meatloaf comes in on the motorcycle, it's just like epic. He's my favorite.
And Tim Curry's the best.
And Tim Curry, yeah.
So this is, you know, if there wasn't a pandemic going on right now, this is a food podcast. We'd be meeting at a restaurant. Actually, we probably wouldn't, because we're separated by geography, but I'd be at a restaurant eating food. Are you a foodie? I know you were a food writer at one point.
Hell yeah. And when we're on tour, it's always like, we got the hot Italian beef, we got the pizza, we got the Chicago dogs, we got, in St. Louis, we did the barbecue. Like, I actually made them turn the van around because we hadn't gotten a Chicago dog, and we were leaving Chicago the first time we toured there. And I was like, no, we have to get the Chicago dog. And I think we went to Franny's maybe. And Reed was like, it's 10 a.m. You really want me to turn the car around? You already had breakfast. And I was like, I must eat it. So I'm a total freak about food. So I was hoping you would ask me about meat.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. And the thing is, you see in other cities and other states, people trying to reproduce the Chicago dog, and it's never the same. It truly is never the same unless you get it in Chicago. Get that Vienna beef, you got the snap, you get the steamed bun. There's nothing like it. And there's nothing wrong with having it at 10 a.m. To your point, one hot dog's not filling. It's like a snack.
Right. I'm like, well, you're shaming me for this? This is like a delicacy. Out here we have our chili dogs, and I didn't really know, like, I was like, Chicago dog, whatever. It's like a hot dog. Who gives a crap? I mean, I was excited about it, but I didn't think it was gonna be like I had to have it, but I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. Like those little tiny peppers.
Oh, the sport peppers. Yeah.
Why don't we have those in the West Coast? Like, why do you only get the sport peppers? I never even heard of the term sport peppers before.
Well, and you probably don't have access or easy access to jardinera, which is very much all
No,
over Chicago, which is the pickled vegetables, the spicy in oil, which is just glorious. I could put that on any sandwich I eat.
we have a Mexican counterpart to that, which is in vinegar, and it's, carrots and
Sure.
radishes, and it's, the Mexican style. We get that, but the oil with the amazing vegetables, no, like it was a whole new world. It was a whole new world. I was so stoked.
And the Mexican vinegar with the vegetables you describe, plenty of taquerias in the Chicago area have that. It's shared from customer to customer. Like it's never lifted up and cleaned out and replaced on the table. It's just this communal silver pail of that vinegar and oil that everyone just kind of
silver pail of vinegar.
So you are on the West Coast, specifically, pronounce your city.
San Luis Obispo, California.
There it is. Didn't want to mess that up, even though I've heard it said a million times.
People say it like San Luis or
Yes, that's why I'm careful. It's the broadcaster in me. I don't want to say the wrong thing. The West Coast, the identity of being attached to the West Coast is really important, it seems, to your look and sound. Is there a scene in San Luis Obispo?
Well, first, let me tell you, I'm very proud to be a multi-generational Californian. In fact, my great grandparents, my mom's side, came from France to California to kind of where like Union Station is today, and had like a winery, and like it goes way back. And I'm pretty excited about that history, and I love to like, get into the genealogy and stuff. So it's like, it's more than just like, ooh, California, like fun and sun. Like I'm very interested in it, like the early rancho history. Secondly, no, SLO does not really have a scene. And I hate to say that, if any like local bands are watching and they're like, Hayley's a total asshole. But okay, in order to have a scene, I feel like there needs to be enough music venues to support enough supportive music venues that bring in local bands to support that energy. As you know, I mean, Chicago is an amazing place to see local music with all sorts of venues, and we've played some of those venues that are, smaller and more DIY. The one place we have to play right now is a donut shop, and it's like a 24-hour donut shop, or open till like 2 a.m. or something. Like our main venues, like the venues that we used to have 10-15 years ago, are completely gone. And all the punk bands that used to come through, we had great punk bands, big named acts come through from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and we would get them. And it was so fun because bands like my old punk band and other people's bands, and an actual scene that was around, was able to, open up for these bands. And that has completely gone away. And it's really sad to think, with COVID, like there's going to be even less infrastructure for bands. So to answer your question, I'm really a person who tours and a person who travels because I get to plug into the amazing music scenes in other places, and I'm glad that they accept me and like I get to do that. But yeah, it's just not like, it's not fertile here. But I think part of it, not to like be overly laboring my answer, like the kids that grow up in small towns are more interesting and they're more weird. Like you see where I'm going with this. Like there's just not a lot to copy. There's not a lot to bounce off of here. So you're basically like free to just do some weird stuff, which is kind of what we did. So I think in some ways it can help a little bit if you're just kind of like the one, platypus in the small pond. That's actually not a bad thing. So
okay, you're a platypus. And it's interesting. I mean, yes, musicians generally like being part of this community and scene, but I think to your point, you're a touring animal. And when you're off the road, it's nice to kind of, I'm sure, decompress and have your own private corner of the world. And the reason why this resonates or makes so much sense to me right now, I just watched the Letterman interview with Dave Chappelle. And Chappelle has taken root in this weird little community in rural Ohio, where he's not superstar David Chappelle, he's just the local guy who happens to probably have big property there. And everyone's kind of weird. It's a very accepting, tolerant community, but he doesn't have to be on when he's home. And so I
That's
kind of get
cool.
that from the
That's super
perspective of Hayley and
cool.
the Crushers.
That's super cool. I just watched his part of his new special, and yeah, he's doing it. He's great. He's great. He's just gonna like age like a fine wine, you know? He's just nothing is sacred.
You talked about the donut shop, and you put out a single this past summer called Jacaranda. And in the video, there's a place in the video, the Rancho Bowl. Is that a real place? Because I would totally hang out there if I were in a punk band.
Is it? Oh, it is in there. Yeah. Yeah. That's in Santa Maria. It's a couple miles away, but yeah, it's a really great old mid-century bowling
I
alley.
love that.
It's funny you say that because the best bowling alleys I went to on tour were like in the Midwest, and I feel like we don't even have good bowling alleys compared to you guys. God, there was this one. I'm gonna be my friend Dougie who took us there. He's from Detroit. He's gonna kill me because I don't remember where this was. I think it was in St. Louis. I don't remember where it was, but they had ashtrays like in the seats, and they were all like chrome. This is normal to you, I guess, but I was like,
It
whoa!
is.
Like
It is.
everything about this place was just like perfect 60s, like just grandma. I loved it so much. And yeah, Rancho Bowl is like the closest we have, but we don't have like the ashtrays. So I don't know.
I mean, when I was a kid, I can't imagine in the present day me tolerating this from my children. But back when I was a kid, we would go hang out at the bowling alley all day. Bye, mom and dad. We're going to go play video games at the bowling alley. And we'd get stacks of quarters, load them up on the pinball games and the video games. And we just spend the day as, in this cloud of smoke, because everyone was just chain smoking like crazy and drinking beer in leagues in the middle of the afternoon. I can't imagine sending my kids off to the bowling alley for a full day
It's a
in the 21st century.
It's a seedy
Yeah.
thing for sure. But I did hang out at the bowling alley as a kid as well because I spent half my time here in this area in central coast of California and half in like Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach. And so when I was up here, there wasn't much going on. We didn't have anything. We didn't have a record store. We had nothing. And so I would just go play the Simpsons video game and be Marge. I loved Marge because like she would like hit people with like the stroller or her purse. And it's funny because I definitely did hang out at the bowling alley. And I remember one time this old lady posted like this big notice in front of the bowling alley that was like, bowling alley hoodlums, get out of here or something. I have it. I still have it. And it was like the most amazing rant about how the kids today hanging out the bowling alley were, getting into playing pool. And like, it was so funny. It was so like retro, because like you said, like it's a bowling alley, like it's not a shooting range. Like, what are the kids supposed to do? I certainly didn't have anything to do. And every punk show that happened was at a Masonic temple or like someone's backyard or even, not at all. So what's the choice,
Masonic temple.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
you mentioned your sister who went through her Bowie phase and went in that direction. Did your interest in music literally start with the Go-Go's?
No, yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like, do you retroactively think of these things because it makes sense for your music? Maybe a little bit, but I do remember being like 7, 8 years old and seeing my mom's copy of Beauty and the Beat, the CD, and putting it on. And I definitely remember bouncing around with a hairbrush, singing "We Got the Beat." I do remember that. So, but I mean, I think everybody's kind of first musical experience is almost like it's not even something that you are aware of. Like, I know for me, it was a lot of like K-Earth 101 oldies. They were always happening around me. There was jazz happening. And like, you kind of suck that up or you don't. And,
Yeah.
Living in a household that is artistic or creative in any way, which I did, thankfully. And my parents were into music, and my mom listened to Elvis Costello, and she had been in New York in the late 70s when the Ramones were just starting, and Patti Smith. And so she had a basic context for punk. So she had cool albums and stuff. And I think that more than anything is just that access as a kid to be like, oh, this is a thing that exists in the world. And I never even thought I would do anything with it. I just thought, oh, this is a thing. Cool. That's a window that I might be able to crawl out of at some point if I need to,
Totally. Back on the bowling alley tip. Natalie in the Facebook Live says, I totally grew up hanging out at bowling alleys. I shoot pool and play video games and use the payphone and eat pizza. That was it. Welcome to the Midwest. That's how we rolled way back when, like mid 80s.
And into the 90s and early 2000s, I have to say, because, bowling alleys haven't changed that much.
Fair.
They really haven't.
Now, your husband, who's also in the band, is he a total geek? Like, and I mean that in the kindest, like, part of my community kind of way. He's a comic book shop owner.
He owned a comic book store for 10 years, so yes.
So let him know that he is missed tonight, because I'd be happy to talk about any number of things ranging from the Justice League to Legion of Superheroes.
I'm just gonna let him stay in the living room because I do not want to go there.
You've had enough. Does he have like a room of comics that you're not allowed to touch?
Oh, James. So if you just like walk around our house, it's like just like kicking over long boxes here and long boxes there and slab things. And he doesn't own this. He sold the shop so we could tour more, which is like, what an amazing human. I'm married to the best man in the world that he would do that. But he still like sells them and stuff. So he's got, really high grade, fancy comic books that are 9 whatever points, whatever.
Just the fact that you said slabbed means, you're plugged into this whole.
So there's all this stuff happening around our house, and that's at night when we're reading, it's like he's reading his like, I don't know, weird old like 50s like horror comic that he found that's like really esoteric and weird, and I'm over here reading like an actual novel, and I love comics too. I love graphic novels a lot, and I do love them. I'm just teasing him, but it is funny that he's a grown man covered in tattoos, and he's like the biggest comic book nerd in the world, and I love him.
I get it. Now,
you guys have a lot to talk about, apparently.
No doubt. When this is all over, when this pandemic's over and you come back to Chicago, I'll feed you Italian beef or Chicago dogs, and we'll talk comics.
I'd love that. I'd love that.
I had Chris Connolly on earlier tonight. I did a podcast earlier with Chris Connolly of Ministry and Revolting Cocks, and he's highly literate, always reading all the time. And I asked him the question, and I'll ask you, since we're talking about reading, do you prefer having the physical book in your hand, or are you more of a Kindle tablet reader in the modern day?
Somebody who is married to a person that goes to bed early, I like a Kindle. And also as someone who likes to live in a van sometimes, I like the Kindle.
It's just easier. Yeah. If you're on tour, forget it. You don't want to bring stacks of books or comics.
Yeah. And just waking up your partner kind of sucks. And I feel like having that reading light on is just kind of like, at a certain point, it's like, who is your partner's sleep more worth it, or is the book more worth it? And it's like, it's always this, let him sleep, So as much as I like to have a book and I have my little lamp and everything, like it's nice to be incognito and just be up at like 1 a.m. like reading some like weird book by myself, like a little kid, like under the covers with my Kindle.
It's worth noting we're doing a podcast right now. You are also a podcast host. You do your own interviews. Oh, come on. You talk to Josie Cotton, Ben Weasel.
True. That's very true.
Bad cop.
I don't know about you. You're a radio guy. So it's like the podcasting thing must have really come easy to you. I don't know. That's fair to say.
It did, but I think I'm an anomaly. This is something I wrestle with all the time. I wish more actual broadcasters would get into podcasting. I feel like a lot of radio people have abdicated their throne of audio and let amateurs run the space. And there are so many radio people who haven't made the transition, and I don't get it. They should all be planting their flag here.
Hell yeah. That is a very punk rock way to think, and I commend you for that. I think that's great. I think people are scared and they're just stuck in their own, way that things are for them, and they don't want to, try something new, and it's scary. And I also think podcasts are kind of like zines in a way. And when I first moved from LA area back up here in my early 20s, I was trying to get away from all the crazy punk rock partying, and just the crazy scene in LA was just, I had no time to make art because I was so busy like trying to find a place to park my car and like just, it just was like too much drama. And so I was like, I don't know anyone here. What do I do? And so I thought I'll start a zine. And so the idea behind the zine was just like, let's meet all the music people. Like, let's plug into that world. And like, there was a scene here in San Luis Obispo, and I got to meet wonderful artists, and that was so cool. And like having an excuse to be like, hey, you're cool, I want to talk to you. That's the simplest thing about zines, but it's also the same with podcasts. Podcasts are the same thing as zines, and even cheaper, really. Because if you have a cell phone or a laptop or any sort of internet Wi-Fi connectivity, you're on your way to having a podcast. And I think I think you're completely right that this is a huge, huge opportunity that so many people are leaving on the table, where maybe your podcast isn't going to be number one on iTunes. Maybe it's just going to be something you do casually. Like I pretty much do mine casually. But think of all the cool people you could meet. And like on the road, I could always be like, oh, this sound person's really cool. Or like, oh, I really like the way this person like did business in this way. Like I want to talk to them more. And so it gives you that excuse to do that without being a creep. If you have a podcast, you can just be like, oh, it's for my podcast. But if you're like, hey, I just want to like get to know you, that can feel a little creepy,
I completely agree. And I've said this before, when the pandemic hit, I had to stop doing this in my car. So I started doing this nightly from home. And at the time I thought, oh, we'll do this for a month. Then we'll be back in the car. Everything will be back to normal. 8 months later, not the case. But my initial motivation was just to keep the podcast alive. I didn't want to lose 7 years of momentum. But I realized quickly, now that I'm doing this at night, to your point, I'm able to meet interesting people a lot more often than I would have with my regular podcast. And I'm having conversations. I'm looking forward to this. This is giving me structure during the pandemic. And I would never have had the chance to talk to you if not for this podcast.
And I really love that. I think that's so great. Yeah.
It really is a fantastic opportunity. And the way you describe podcasting, comparing it to a zine, I think that nails it, because a zine can be whatever you want it to be. And I think people get really hung up as podcasters with an episode needs to be a specific length, or I need to do X, Y, and Z. Fuck it. You can do whatever you want. It should be as long as it's interesting. Then you're done. You're out.
Right. And it can be sort of, I think zines are kind of disposable, and I think podcasts are, for better or worse, a little disposable. Sure. And that's okay. It's like you do one, it's an okay podcast. You do another, maybe it's better. You do another one, maybe that's what, it doesn't always have to be on your permanent record. I mean, it does exist on the internet, but people aren't going back and listening to podcasts that are like 8 years old normally. I mean, some people are, but really it's this like, it's like what you're doing here on Facebook Live, and a lot, I mean, I've been listening to some of your shows and stuff. It's like you are on a schedule and you're just zooming forward. You've talked to a lot of amazing people. So yeah, I encourage more people to just try it out if they think that it's something they want to do. Also, maybe you don't have a face for TV podcast. There you go.
There it is. Well, and the thing is, what I've found, I've had larger guests in terms of stature and accomplishments. That doesn't always mean listening. What I find, the episodes I think connect more and have the most listening or video views, a lot of local independent bands. Those tend to be my most successful things, and they're the most natural and DIY of everything. And I think it's because the more exposed someone is, the less need there is for people to dial into that. I think when you're tapped into a local community, an independent community, there aren't a whole lot of resources to reflect that community. So I love being able to zero in on independent artists, local, national, because that to me is what people are interested in.
Totally. You're on the cutting edge.
Sure I am. But do you like doing it? Do you feel weird ever, like when you crack the mic?
No, I mean, like I'm a writer, and I've been doing I did journalism for about 10 years, and I'm a marketer, freelance writer and marketer now, which means I write marketing copy. Yay.
Well, that's a very cool job. Those
cool.
are skills that not everyone has.
Sure, I shouldn't be so weird about it. Honestly, like so when I first started doing journalism, I was getting paid like 10 cents a word. And then I was getting paid like, a little bit per story, whatever. And then, you know how it goes. But doing marketing, it's like, I mean, it's not journalism, obviously. It's just complete lies. It's basically magic. It's like I'm conjuring up a magical, concoction to make someone do something. It's marketing is really wild. It's totally so super weird. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so just the amount of money that you can make doing that, and if you're working for clients you respect and you like, and of course I only work with like people, like I work for a local food co-op, and I work for different wineries here. Like I like my
That's
clients, and
awesome.
I'm not doing anything nefarious with what I'm doing, but I just realized like, wow, you can say you're a writer and work for a newspaper or magazine and feel really like you got a lot of street cred, but you're not going to have money for toilet paper. Or, you can take the same writing skills and you can apply them to, other avenues. And that's what I've kind of been doing the last like 5 years, is just all that sort of website copy,
Yeah.
marketing copy, all that stuff. Don't remember what the question was, but anyways, that's kind of what I do when I'm not playing music. So that's kind of what supports the life.
Well, and it helps the band too. I mean, those are skills that are invaluable
Yeah.
for a
Oh,
band.
the question you were asking, if it's weird to interview people. So I was interviewing people a lot every week for, I used to work for a twice weekly paper, and I would interview, do photos, do layout for the community section. Like it was wild. Like I learned so much from that job, because it was like, wow, like it was like you write the story, you get it done, somebody looks it over, then you look it over again, and then you like put it up on the page and you print it out, and then everyone looks at it again. And it was a really small team, and being in a small town community setting, like I learned a lot. But I also learned, wow, like when you interview people, you there's like kind of a formula to it, and there's also like a way to know like when people are like pulling back, or if they're
Hmm.
trying to change a subject, or asking, if you're not asking, rich enough questions that are not going to lead to a good answer. Like that took me about 10 years, but now that I've done it, I feel like I can really interview and walk up to most anyone and kind of connect with them. And I think that's a really valuable skill.
Great.
It's helped me out in like show situations where there's either maybe a conflict with like booking, or there's trying to get paid, or just trying to like interface with people that are just kind of not on the same wavelength as you. Like if you have that ability to interview, or not just interview, but just connect with people one on one, and like figure out what they want, what makes them tick, like what's really happening between the lines. I
Yeah.
think that's a super valuable thing to know. And like I'm glad that I learned that, even though I made literally no money for most of my career, because I was in print journalism, which I can't even believe my college I went to allowed me to get a degree in print journalism in 2009. Like it was a sinking ship then, and like now it's like it's underwater.
I got a degree in broadcasting. I didn't need a math class to get my 4-year degree. So I get it.
Yeah.
Marketing, I like marketing and I appreciate marketing. The thing I don't like about marketing is the language of marketing, the industry talk. The second I hear words like funnel and all the jargon, I'm out. Like it
Yeah.
takes it takes all the interesting stuff out of it for me. And clearly that's why I'm not in marketing. But that I did digital marketing for about a year, and I went to a conference or two, and hearing people like super serious marketers talk to one another, I thought, I can't do that. I can't be that guy.
Yeah. Well, I
It-
guess I'm more of a content creator. I really don't talk about synergy or anything like that either. But
That's good.
I think we all have to take the skills we have, and like I always kind of knew I was going to do something with writing, and that was like my main skill. Like I just knew that was the one thing that I was going to need to cling to like survive as an adult. And so I found a way to do that without having to have like a 9 to 5 job. So I'm happy with that, you know.
As a writer, I spend a lot of time on social media. I do digital stuff by day. I see the same memes shared all the time. It drives me insane when people share memes with misspelled words or bad punctuation. Does that even?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a meme, it's like it's a meme. I don't know. I feel like memes are their own territory. What bothers me, and I'll just tell you my pet peeves right here. Number one, when you see a band bio or any sort of like bio or story about a person, and the first sentence is like, this person was born in Idaho, like people that don't put the most important information first, it makes me want to email them and be like, I read through the thing. Here's the chunk that's actually interesting. Put that at the top.
My
Put a
God.
couple adjectives in there. That's what really pisses me off. Because I'm just like, you are burying the lead so far down, and people don't know how to sell the thing about them that's special. And usually you need someone else to tell you that. I mean, we all do. So it is kind of fun to have that puzzle. and to help people with that. So I actually don't necessarily mind it too much.
That's a great point. And it's something I bring up all the time. Yeah, lead with the most interesting stuff.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And as far as where someone is born, there's a reason why no one likes to watch superhero origin movies. Let's just get right to the fight with Dr. Octopus. We don't want to see the radioactive spider bite, the discovery. Let's just jump right to it. Let's begin with action. Let's not have that build.
Or just get rid of all the superhero movies altogether.
I
But
don't know
I
what
didn't
you're
say
talking
that.
about. How dare you? How dare you? So Haley and the Crushers, busy this year. You started the year with Vintage Millennial.
It's true.
I mentioned Jacaranda, the EP, which came out there. I mentioned the song. Oh, look at that. Look at the handsome vinyl. Oh, look at you come prepared, Haley. Now, all right. So there are different colored vinyl versions of the Jacaranda single. There's what do you have? You got green and periwinkle. Oh, look at that. That is
Yeah.
so like 50s, 60s retro. I love that. But different colors. And people, if they want to have and to hold a physical copy of your music, they can go to Bandcamp and buy a copy.
Yes.
I
Or
haven't.
go to Eccentric Pop Records, Rita Records, or Surf and Key Records.
I have an apparel question, which probably pertains more to your bandmates than to you. But can a fez be worn by anyone? I feel like you need a certain kind of body type, personality type to rock the fez properly.
That's a really good point. So I'm an Elks member. So the Elks, do you know that the Elks, the Elks lodges, they're great places to stop on tour because you can stop for like free or $10 to just park your van, and they have cheap drinks and food and stuff, and they're a great organization. They're not like a bunch of crazy like gun toting people. They like help kids with disabilities.
That's a great band life hack. I've never heard that from a touring band. That's genius.
Also, if you're gonna pee in a bucket in your van, put kitty litter down first.
The kind that clumps, the clumping kitty litter.
The smell is dissipated.
Makes sense.
But we can go into that later. But I think if you're a lodge, if you're of the lodge, I mean the fez that Reed wears is not an Elks fez per se. I think I bought him it's like some other thing. But if you partake in the lodge in any way, in any sort of fashion, I think you're allowed to wear any of the fezes that are out there. But yeah, I think you're right. That does take a certain kind of man. I think a beard helps. It kind of like balances it.
Could I do a fez?
Yes. Yes, you could.
There's I was going to say there's a comic book convention. There are plenty of comic book conventions. The one that happens, the big one that happens locally is C2E2. It's been going on for like 7 years at McCormick Place in Chicago. And one of the vendors that's there every year, a gigantic multi-area kiosk, is Fezorama. And every year I go there and there's this wide variety of fezes. I think, oh, that they look like so much fun. I should buy one. And they're like, I don't know how much money they are, but I can never pull the trigger because I'm like, I'm just going to bring it home and put it on a shelf. I have no reason to own a fez.
You need a supportive partner. Your kids need to be on board. I think you need friends that are supportive. I think you need a community around you that is like, this is for you, buddy. Like, you're doing a good job. It's like, so my dad is so funny. He was like, I was like, I'm going to start wearing hats. And he's like, your personality is already like up here. I don't think you need a hat. I think putting a hat on it is just like one more accessory for you. Like you're big enough. Like maybe just tone down a little bit. You know what I mean? But like certain people, they actually need a hat in order to be like tip top. You know what I mean? Like that, to get to their like personal spot. Like Reed, my husband is someone who with the hat, it's like he suddenly becomes like, the cowboy. Like he needs the hat. So some people are hat people, some people aren't. Like I should probably go into a business model like where I just tell people if they're hat people or not, and like which hats are right for them, like beret, fez, ball cap, like.
So Jacaranda, the video, let's see, I mentioned the Rancho Bowl. We see you in an open field with the cool shades, the purple lipstick, and that's your dog in the video too, right?
Yeah, so our dogs are always featured in the video. In fact, we're working on one right now, and both the dogs are in the new video as well.
I think that's important
Yes.
because
Yes.
at the end of the day, don't you make this for yourself?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And if you have a really scruffy, ugly, cute dog, I mean, you're really not, you shouldn't hoard that. The world needs to see it. The world needs to see that dog.
I mentioned that you are definitely a video focused band. I
Yeah.
love the mermaid video, blue and green.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you
That's
watched our videos. Thank you so
of
much.
course, of course. I love your music. It's fun. It's surfy. It sounds like girl group stuff from the '60s. It sounds very wholesome. It's not always wholesome, but it's super fun to listen to. I love the Gabby is a Dom.
Oh, yes.
That's
Yeah.
your tale of empowerment with the Glockenspiel.
Yes. It's funny though. I mean, people might know the story about this. I'll be brief. It's just when I was living in Long Beach, like 19 years old, in an apartment with a bunch of girls, a woman briefly stayed there, and her name was Gabby. Her name is Gabby, and she worked in a sex dungeon in downtown LA, and she was a submissive, and so she had to wear all the white lingerie. So it's like white teddies and bustiers and all that crap. And so one day she gave me this bag of white like lingerie, and I was like, oh, okay, what is this? And that's when she explained that she was a sub and that she was graduating to dominatrix, and as a dominatrix she had no use for the naive white lingerie anymore. She could only wear black, and now she was in charge, and she was, the dominatrix make tons of money. I mean, they really do make a lot of money, and they have their own clientele. They're basically entrepreneurs. And
Sure.
I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, that's super cool. um, and Gabby and I aren't really friends anymore, but it was one of those things that always stuck with me and just felt like, yeah, there's something else here. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something else here.
So you said you're working on a video. Does that
Yes.
mean there's a bunch more new music coming?
We do have a song. I'd love to just premiere the information right now on your wonderful Car Concani podcast, if you don't
Please.
mind.
Of
Because
course I
we
don't
finally
mind.
have, yeah. So it's Church of Flag is our new single. It's coming out December 20th. There will be a single. Side A is Hayley Crusher singing the song. Side B is Dr. Kane singing the song. And there's a t-shirt that goes with it. And so there's a video as well. And I taught myself how to use Final Cut Pro because I'm just sitting at home. And this new video is pretty hilarious. And it's also coming out on the 20th. So
Here's a symbol of the year we're in right now. You said this is coming up in December. And I thought, why is she talking about that? That's so far away. I have no concept of the flow of time anymore.
yeah,
December to me seems like it's months away. No, it's next month.
it's next month.
Time has just flown and moved in such a strange, impossible to pin down kind of way.
I
December's
know.
next month. So next month
Yeah.
you have a new video.
And we're lucky that we recorded this like last winter or whatever when we were on tour with our drummer Dougie Tangent, and we recorded it in St. Louis at Encapsulated Studios, and so it was already done. So it's not like we're doing this like on the fly here in California. So, and it's Church of Flag. It's about being old but still loving Black Flag, and all of the implications that come with that. Because as we know, some of us don't make it through punk rock to adulthood. And so it's dedicated to a friend of mine who did not make it through to adulthood, but I still think of her as like the punkest person in the world. So it means a lot to us. We're really excited to share it.
That's awesome. And like I said, your band is super accessible sounding music. It's sing-alongable, it's hooky, but again, the lyrics sometimes run counter to what's happening in the melody, which I love. And it's a super fun band, and you've got the right look, the vibe, the attitude. Hayley and the Crushers, you are Hayley. Thank you for doing this.
James, you are amazing. Thank you for having me. And I wish we could have had a little bit more meat talk, but maybe next time.
I'm telling you, when this whole, pandemic thing is done and you're back in the van peeing in cat litter across this great country of ours, you come to Chicago, wherever you play, I'll meet you guys beforehand. We'll go for beef sandwiches and fries. We'll load you up. We'll fatten you up, as we like to do here in Chicago. We like to fatten our bands up before we send them on the way. And yeah, we'll dine. We'll break bread.
Thank you so much. That's the thing I'm gonna cling to as I'm having my next depressive episode with COVID-19 crashing down. I'm gonna think, there's going to be some fatty beef on the other side of this. So thank you so much.